Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Wednesday, September 16, 2020. Thanks so much for joining me. I want to begin in Louisville, Kentucky, where the family of Breonna Taylor has settled with the City of Louisville for over $12 million. I'll bring the headline on your screen. Breonna Taylor's family to receive $12 million settlement from the City of Louisville. This is according to the New York Times. This is what they said. It comes 6 months after the death of Miss Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician, in a botched drug raid, but before the state's attorney general has said whether the officers involved in the shooting would be criminally charged, a key demand of protesters. Quote, my administration is not waiting to move ahead with needed reforms to prevent a tragedy like this from ever happening again, Mayor Greg Fisher said. When you know what the right thing is to do, you do it. Why wait? This is definitely a victory for the family of Breonna Taylor in a wrongful death lawsuit. And in fact, according to attorney Benjamin Crump, he said that this is a record-setting level of compensation for a wrongful death. However, it clearly is not justice. And that point was made several times yesterday in the press conference. In a few minutes, I'll play a clip from that press conference. But I want to continue reading from the New York Times. Most of all, it was unusual because of the range of changes, a dozen in all, that the embattled city agreed to adopt in an effort to quell the protests. Based on at least 20 years of tracking these types of cases, I've never seen something like this, said Christopher, a community organizer Mrs. Taylor's family turned to after her death. The bottom line is the monetary amount combined with the reforms is unprecedented. The policing changes would require more oversight by top commanders and make mandatory safeguards that were common practice in the department, but were not followed the night of the March 13th raid. They would also put in place an early warning system to flag officers who have been accused of excessive force. So again, in addition to the $12 million, there are some dozen reforms that are included in the settlement that the city is going to implement in the policing agencies. And again, this is still not justice because the murderers, the people who actually pull the trigger, killing Breonna Taylor, they are still free. And because this is quite honestly, this is a bill for the taxpayers. This is a bill for the people of Louisville. This is not something that the policing agencies, the police force there is going to have to pay. It's not as though this money is going to be taken out of the budget of the police department. This is coming from the city. This is coming from the taxpayers. So this is a victory for the family in that they deserve to be compensated, even though there is no amount of money that can replace your loved one, clearly. But obviously, the city had to pay. The police department needs to pay, but the city had to pay. And so we'll see how this progresses a little further. I want to play a clip here of attorney Benjamin Crump giving his opinion of what happened. Take a listen in.
And it is not just the historic $12 million settlement, which, as I understand, is the largest amount ever paid out for a black woman in a wrongful death killed by a police in America.
Again, that was attorney Benjamin Crump representing the family. He was able to get a $12 million settlement for the family of Breonna Taylor. But as we stated, it's not just the money. They are getting some reforms. I mean, the reforms are something, but it's not enough. And again, the fact that the city is paying, not the police force is paying. And in fact, the mother of Breonna Taylor spoke at that same press conference, and she let it be known that this is just the beginning. It's not about getting compensated for a wrongful death. It's also about justice.
As significant as today is, it's only the beginning of getting full justice for Breonna. We must not lose focus on what the real job is. And with that being said, it's time to move forward with the criminal charges because she deserves that and much more. Her beautiful spirit and personality is working through all of us on the ground. So please continue to say her name, Breonna Taylor.
So that was the mother of Breonna Taylor. And she is making it clear that they are still seeking justice, actual justice. Money is one thing, compensation is one thing, but justice is something entirely different. And this is what we are screaming for. So I have no problem. In fact, the family should have been paid more. You can't replace a human life. Money doesn't replace a human life. Money does help, especially when you're in poverty, especially when you're trying to, pay attorneys to get justice in the first place. And so setting that aside, between the reforms that they're trying to get and the money, the compensation, that's one thing. But without actually having these officers arrested and without these officers going forward, knowing that they will be held accountable, we will continue to see these types of shootings all across the country. We will see the city. If I were to take a more pessimistic view of it, it almost is like the city is willing to pay this much to not hold these police officers accountable. And so if the family were to drop the ball here and say we're not pursuing justice, then that would be one thing. But they are fighting. They're going to continue fighting because otherwise this would be purchasing their silence. And so it's vitally important that police officers pay the price, that the police departments, twofold, police departments need to be the ones that pay this bill. Police officers need to have liability insurance that they pay premiums on every single month, that they have to pay a deductible on when they are found guilty or when they have been involved in a police shooting that leads to a settlement, a wrongful death settlement. There has to be some civil liabilities that police officers are held accountable for going forward, or else they will just figure the city will pay the bill. And we'll see this kind of behavior. I feel I respect the fact that they were able to secure some reforms in this settlement. I respect that. But I also know police officers laugh at reforms. And all they do is really wait out the news cycle. As soon as the news cycle is gone, as soon as everyone is off the hook, they just go back to their same ways. So I'm glad they made the effort to get the reforms, but without the police department actually paying, without these dollars coming out of their budget, without these dollars coming out of insurance policies that are paid for by police officers, they will continue the same behavior pattern that we've seen replicated across this country month in, month out, day out, over and over again. The police in this country have not learned their lesson. They are quick to pull the trigger to kill one of us and ask questions later, and they are yet to be held accountable, and we're still waiting for the murderers of Breonna Taylor to be arrested. For years, many on the left have labeled ICE, Immigration's Custom Enforcement, we've labeled it as a fascistic police force, the fascistic police arm of the federal government. And for many years, we have been labeled as being hysterical or being crazy leftists. Like they've labeled us everything they could possibly think of. Because they did not, when I say they, centrists as well as conservatives, anyone who doesn't see as clear-eyed as we on the left have been saying. I mean, we've been seeing it, and we've been saying it, that ICE is a fascist organization. As it came out yesterday that that the ICE agents in Georgia, at the detention center in Georgia, had been performing forced sterilizations, forced hysterectomies on women, detainees. And it also came out yesterday that that in a sexual assault case dealing with ICE agents, the ICE agents deported one of the key witnesses. I think it's time that people might start wanting to listen to those of us who you have labeled as hysterical. I think it's a rejection. I'm going to get into the details of these stories, but I just want to preface the entire conversation this way. because there is an assumption in this country that America is noble and that America is better than this, and that these type of things can't happen in America because we're civilized. And being on the left, and it's not because we're on the quote unquote left, because there's nothing special about being on the left except for what we fight for. And when you fight for marginalized communities, you see the sobering reality of what America really is. America is not this city sitting on a hill, the shining city sitting on a hill. It's none of that. It's not this noble experiment. It's not this brave, patriotic band of patriots that are going across the globe trying to spread democracy. America is not that. When you fight on behalf of marginalized people, you see the rancid underbelly of what America really is. And ICE, Immigration Customs and Enforcement, they are the fascistic arm of this government. And they are carrying out their fascism. And the target of this fascism are immigrants. That said, I want to play a clip of the whistleblower, this sister, Dawn Wooten. She is the one who filed the report, and she filed the report saying that there are human rights violations that are happening in the detention centers down in Georgia, and that they were forcing hysterectomies, forced sterilizations on women who had no idea why they were having these procedures done. I want you to hear from her as she describes how confused these women were and how she described the nickname that they gave the doctor who was, quote unquote, the ovary collector. Take a listen.
You have detained women. I had several detained women on numerous occasions that would come to me and say, Miss Wooten, I had a hysterectomy. Why? I had no answers as to why they had those procedures. And one lady walked up to me here this last time around between October of 19 until July the 2nd. And she said, what is he? Is he the uterus collector? Does he collect uteruses? And I asked her, what does she mean? And she says, everybody that I talked to has had a hysterectomy. And you just don't know what to say. I mean, I don't have a answer for why that they would come to me and they would say, is he the uterus collector?
My apologies. I stated it incorrectly. It's the uterus collector. And this was verified. Now, I want to be sure. I take her at her word. Anybody who's going to put their life on the line like this, put their career on the line like this, and who's fighting on behalf of marginalized people, I take her at her word. But this has been verified by multiple news organizations, including NBC, MSNBC. They have done their own verification. They have spoken to the attorneys of several victims of this, of people who had forced hysterectomies. And in some cases, they had no idea that's what was happening when they went in to get a procedure. I want to put a headline up on your screen from the Washington Post. Nancy Pelosi demands a probe after ICE nurse raises alarm over medical care hysterectomies at detention center. And this is what they're reporting. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats demanded an investigation on Tuesday into claims by a nurse in an Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention center in Georgia that detainees there have been denied basic medical care and possibly subjected to hysterectomies without their informed consent. If true, the appalling conditions described in the whistleblower complaint, including allegations of mass hysterectomies being performed on vulnerable immigrant women, are a staggering abuse of human rights, Pelosi said in a statement. The DHS Inspector General must immediately investigate the allegations detailed in this complaint. ICE officials on Tuesday promised to cooperate with an investigation, but denied that widespread hysterectomies were performed at Irwin. According to ICE, just 2 such procedures have been performed on detainees there since 2018. I'm sorry, too many. But of course, they are going to deny this. They're going to continue to deny it until we actually have an investigation that exposes it. I mean, what do we expect? ICE to just come out and say, yeah, you caught us red-handed. No, of course they're going to deny, and deflect. But we have seen the behavior patterns of ICE over the years. We have seen them, how they behave, how they do these detainees, how they deport them. And actually, I'm so far from done. I got to cover one more aspect of this to give you more insight into how the thinking of these fascists really goes. According to the Texas Tribune, ICE deported a key witness in investigation of sexual assault and harassment at El Paso Detention Center. And I want to read you directly from this reporting. The U.S. government late Monday deported a crucial witness in an ongoing investigation into allegations of sexual assault and harassment at an El Paso immigrant detention center, the witness's lawyer said. The 35-year-old woman has been held in the facility, which is overseen by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, for about a year and told lawyers about a, quote, pattern and practice of abuse there, including that guards systematically assaulted her and other detainees in areas that were not visible to security cameras. Several guards forcibly kissed her, and at least one touched her intimate parts, often as she was walking back from the medical unit into her barrack, according to her complaint filed by law enforcement agencies. This is who they are. This is what they do. And this is not fear-mongering. This is not being hysterical. This is not hyperbole. This is none of the many things that we're labeled when we bring attention to what we see with clear eyes. People have been identifying ICE as a fascist organization for years, particularly people on the left. And the left doesn't have anything, the left is just a title. It is a collection of people who have dedicated their entire political existence to fighting on behalf of marginalized people. And when you fight on behalf of marginalized people, the homeless, the immigrant, the LGBTQ community, the trans community, when you fight on behalf of people who are impoverished, you see the rancid underbelly of what America really is. And you see how people in power brutalize people subjected to their power. And oftentimes that brutalization comes in the form of sexual assault. And in this case, it came in the form of eugenics and sexual assault. This is what people do. When people have power, and they have power over a segment that has been dehumanized by both the president of the United States as well as the federal government across administrations, you can guarantee that this type of behavior will occur if we are not vigilant in our fight against them. But instead, people have been calling us hysterical. I want to pull up a tweet on your screen from someone on Twitter who said it perfectly. At Toxic Left Watch. The handle is obviously sarcasm, but this is what he said on Twitter, or they said, I don't know how they identify it. They say, well, if it isn't the toxic left being correct once again, that ICE is a fascist organization of state power, despite yellow belly pod save liberals insisting it was somehow not for years. And this is a specific reference to the most popular podcast in the world, Pod Save America, which is a liberal podcast who attacked us relentlessly over the last 4 years as we called for ICE to be abolished. Well, maybe you should have listened to us on the left instead of listening to your latte liberals. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
So last night, President Donald Trump had a town hall, a one-on-one town hall with he and George Stephanopoulos and a handful of socially distanced audience members. And it didn't go well. And It's worth covering because of the substance of it, but it's also worth covering because how often do you actually get a chance to see the president of the United States be held accountable in real time, being fact checked in real time? You don't get to see it often. I want to first play a clip from Laura Ingraham because Laura Ingraham of Fox News thought it went so bad that she called it an ambush. Take a listen in.
President Trump finishing up a Pennsylvania town hall just moments ago. It was hosted by ABC News and former Clintonite George Stephanopoulos, but the DNC may as well have put the whole thing on.
You should know that some of these people voted for you last time around. Some voted for Hillary Clinton.
Why did you throw vulnerable people like me under the bus?
Why don't you support a mandate for national mask wearing? And why don't you wear a mask more often?
Why would you downplay a pandemic that is known to disproportionately harm low-income families and minority communities?
And then there was this moment.
Should pre-existing conditions which Obamacare brought to fruition be removed?
No.
Please stop and let me finish my question, sir. Should that be removed?
I hope you are taken seriously. I hope you are. And we are not going to hurt anything having to do with pre-existing conditions. They will not do that because they have socialized.
I have to stop you there.
You've been trying to strike down pre-existing conditions. I have it already, and it's a much better plan for you, and it's a much better plan.
All right. So I did a full clip on this last night on YouTube and on Facebook. So go and check that out because I went point by point, particularly on his lies about Obamacare, because the president of the United States has not offered any plan to replace Obamacare. And now on this show, I'm going to be sure we advocate for Medicare for all, right? Like every other major nation on the face of the planet, they have Medicare for all, where your taxes cover everything and you don't have to go come out of your pocket and go bankrupt because you got sick or can't get treated because you don't have enough money. We do need Medicare for all. However, Obamacare has helped out millions of people. I was one of them for 1 year, and then the next year I couldn't afford it because it was too expensive, which is why we need Medicare for all. But what Donald Trump is trying to do is trying to strip away everything. He doesn't want you to have any health care, but he wants to simultaneously tell you that his plan for you is actually better. Like he literally spent that entire exchange with the woman, the last voice that you heard, trying to convince her that his plan is going to be better. And it was so bad that George Stephanopoulos had to fact check him in real time and let be like, no, Mr. President, you have not offered a plan. We've been asking you for a plan for the longest. And the reason they cannot offer a plan, Republicans cannot offer a plan, very simply put, is because they refuse Medicare for all and they believe in quote unquote free market solutions. Well, Obamacare is not socialized medicine. It is a market-based solution. It actually provides windfall profits for the healthcare industry. Every month, they get record profits. And in fact, Republicans can't do anything better based on their ideology because they'll never give us Medicare for all. And if you're not going to give us Medicare for all, then the best solution is Obamacare. However, I know personally that we need so much more than Obamacare.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. At this point in every single episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank the people who make this show possible, our patrons. Very special welcome to Alsonia M. Thank you for becoming a patron. Lisa B. Thank you for becoming a patron. JBT. Thank you for becoming a patron. Kate Harvey. Thank you for becoming a patron. Brent A. Everybody just clap your hands. Brent A. Thank you for becoming a patron. Jamie Bird. Thank you for becoming a patron. Kayla M. Thank you for becoming a patron. Nina M. Thank you for becoming a patron. Leticia H. Thank you for becoming a patron. Austin A. Thank you for becoming a patron. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, uncut interviews, none of the commercial interruptions, and you give me the ability to speak power into the powerless, whether the powerful like it or not.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Yeah.
Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
All right. Check me out. Okay. We're running short on the public show time, so be sure to go to patreon.com/the BPD show to get access to the full hour every single day. Thank you to all the patrons who make it possible. I want to at least cover one last story, and this is from Scientific American. They shared on Twitter the following, quote, Scientific American has never endorsed a presidential candidate in our 175 history until now. The 2020 election is literally a matter of life and death. We urge you to vote for health, science, and Joe Biden for president. And then they have a full article on their website with basically the same title, but allow me to read it to you. Scientific American endorses Joe Biden. We've never backed a presidential candidate in our 175 history until now. And one last tweet from them. They said the evidence and the science show that Donald Trump has badly damaged the U.S. and its people because he rejects evidence and science. Yeah, kudos to them. Listen, again, like I have slowly but surely come to the point where I'm like, F it. Joe Biden has to be president, and I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. And I really don't give a damn what anybody says at this point, because we've seen clearly the threat that Donald Trump poses. He doesn't pose a rhetorical threat, right? He doesn't pose a figurative threat. He poses a threat of life and death to so many people. I think about it every single day. Out of the 200, we have now officially crossed 200,000 Americans who have died. And of that 200,000, I fully believe that perhaps 30,000 may have died anyway, because it was a novel virus. It was something we had no medicine, no treatment, no vaccine, no therapeutics. We had nothing for it. So there's a good possibility we would have at least lost 30,000 people, but 170,000 more were lost because of the ridiculousness of Donald Trump. That's a fact. That's a fact, because of how he downplayed it, because of how he didn't take it seriously, because of how he politicized it. And because of that reason, not only that, but we've covered it. We've seen how Donald Trump is now moving into full fascist mode, where he's bragging every single day about using federal agents to kill leftists, people who we are in league with, comrades. We've seen that. And so we're just past the Rubicon. I'm sorry. We're past the Rubicon. And as much as I am irritated with the Democratic Party, I was talking to my guys last night from Political Thirst Trap, the show that I do Tuesday and Thursday nights. We were talking last night, and the truth is, it's like when November 4th comes and we have gotten rid of Donald Trump, I'm turning all of my energy right on the Democratic Party. Because there's not a day that goes by that the Democrats have not done something that needs our full attention and our full opposition. But when we put it in comparison to what Donald Trump is doing and the threat that he poses, like I honestly believe that if he gets reelected, we will see 500,000 Americans die because of his absurdity and his ridiculousness. Now, there's a possibility that many people would die anyway, because we still would be dealing with the lingering vestiges of how he politicized wearing masks, how he politicized shutting things down. And so for Scientific American to come out after 175 years and decide to wade in politics, I don't blame them. I get it. It's that kind of year, a year where you would normally find me voting third party. You would normally find me opposing Joe Biden with everything that I have. But it is a very sad testimony about where we are in this country that I don't have that luxury. I personally, you do what you want to do. I don't have that luxury, because I fear that my sisters and my brother, who are all teachers, are going to be forced back into a classroom with snotty-nosed kids carrying the coronavirus and spreading it from school to home, from home to school, from the sandbox to the classroom. I fear that is a reality, and that it could hit close to home because of how utterly fatuously stupid Donald Trump really is. And just how obsessed he is with his ego, so much so that he would put the lives of millions of Americans at risk. And so Scientific American, I feel you. I understand. I get it. I get it, and it's kind of like they're reluctantly like, hey, we don't do this, but we got to do this. That's the story of a lot of people. But I tell you, November 4th, after we're done with Donald Trump, that's when I'm coming back for the Democrats, because they got to get some of this too. Patrons, stay tuned. Everybody else, I'll see you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.